program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the middle of the African bush. I'm sitting on the edge of a little river system and we're watching some beautiful antelope called Inala, and this is Safari Live.
Ready.
Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Well, welcome, and there we go, a female and a young male Inala. Now, it looks like they are grazing on grass, but Inala is supposed to be a browser. Now, if we look actually quite carefully, they actually are snipping a bit of grass as well, but I will show you what they're mostly after when we move away from them. And they do eat a little bit of grass, but if they have a choice, they will go for leaves. And of course, we've been going through an incredibly dry period, but there is a bit of green from the rain, and the animals are taking advantage of that. But my name is Brent Smith. I have a dangerous Dave the Dish on camera. He still wants me to call him Downpour. I will not do it. And we're on a live African safari. And remember, any questions, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or questions at WildEarthTV. What's making noise behind us? There we go, some Lilac Breasted Rollers. I was hoping they're going to roll. It's the right time of the year. There's a bit of a battle going on. I can see 3. Okay, there we go, there's one there. Now, they have a very distinct flight pattern that they get their name from. I'm trying to watch now. He doesn't look like he wants to roll. And he's been... And come on, give us a roll. A rock and roller? No, this one's not a rock or a roller. It's a glider as it glides down. So that was the losing male. If we go back up on top to that dead leadwood on the far left-hand side, leadwood. Yes, there we go, Dave. There. There's the pair. They probably have a nest somewhere in that dead tree, I think that other male was vanquished, and that's why he wasn't rolling. Rolling is a display of someone who's dominant. Okay, let's keep going. Now, my plan is I'm going to go start my afternoon with the incredible Nkuhuma. And it's going to be the first time I've been back since we were there next to them as they took down that buffalo bull. And on the other vehicle out with me today is Jamie, and she's got Thunder as her cameraman. And I know Herbie's out tracking, trying to find some leopards. But now, just for interest's sakes, they found Tingana and my favourite, Djuma, the ghost from the north, up in Buffelshoek, and it seems like they're having a bit of a territorial dispute at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see if they push further south during that dispute. But at the moment, they're about 4 or 5 kilometres from our northern boundary. There are some elephant tracks heading towards Buffelshoek Waterhole, so who knows, maybe we'll have some elephant and lion in the same scene. Wouldn't that be pleasant? So, while I see what's happening at the Buffelshoek Waterhole and at the Nkuhuma kill site, let's go see what Jamie's up to.
Good afternoon and welcome on the Sunset Safari. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon we have Thunder on camera with me, and we're heading off into the wilderness to see what we can see, which was an elephant about 5 minutes ago, which I've been trying desperately to get on camera, but he's just in the worst possible spot. Now I'm going to play the patience game and just lurk around this road and wait for him to come out again. Lovely big bull. We've also happened upon some leopard tracks, which I think we might be following up on. I've alerted Herbie as well. I'm going to try and see if we can't catch up with whichever female happened to walk across Vulture main access road. Now, all in all, an exciting afternoon plan. Other than that, I actually don't have a plan, which I'm starting to learn is the way forward. Nothing ever goes according to plan, anyway. Oh, like the fact that there's a big blue tractor slowly trundling towards us. Quick! Quick! Race across the road before it gets us. And let's have a look at Sydney's dam while I wait for the big blue tractor to come past me. And see if anything's happening here. It's all looking very quiet. What's under that tree over there, Eggsy? The dead tree at the back. Up a bit, and there in the middle of your screen. What's there? It's a log, isn't it? A light-coloured log. Could have been something lying in the shade, but it's not, unfortunately. So we'll start off on a good note with a log like Cheetah. Sorry, everybody. Herbie's trying to contact me. I did call him in for those leopard tracks. Standing by. Copy that, thanks Herbie. Yeah, she came from Sandy Patch. Nkonzo on top of the mover, Nkonzo. Eggsy doing a fantastic job of scanning into the shade. Right, I'm going to wait until this giant blue tractor comes past us, which is going to take the next 10 years. Let's head back to Brent and whatever's happening at Buffelshoek Dam.
Now you can just see there's quite a bit of movement happening under the water there. Oh dear. The wind has picked up now. We could actually see them under the water till the wind picked up. Let's see if one pops its head out. There you go. So there's a whole bunch of serrated hinged terrapins that are most happy. There we go. You can just see the back of one shell. But there is water now, and they're very actively feeding through the shallows here. Oh, there we go. He's crossing over a little mudbank. So any little insects, tadpoles that have managed to be born after the rain, of course, have lots of little predators that are after them, including these terrapins. Okay, well, there we go. There's just a head popping up. Oh, see that big blink. And there we go, a lovely bit of sunlight coming through. You can get nice detail on him now. Sorry, I'm just listening to something quickly. I thought it might be the sound of a large antelope sparring, but I think it's a woodpecker that is really going at it. Okay, well, let's go have a look. Let's head a bit further. And of course, the lion kill's not far from here. You can see the vultures still up in the tree in the distance there. There we go. So only white back so far. And I'm sure the lions are keeping them up in the trees. Well, let's go have a closer look. Now, clouds dissipating a bit, beautiful sunshine coming out. I'm quite happy. I did mention to Dave yesterday I definitely prefer the sunshine to the cold and windy, cloudy weather. That woodpecker sounded like it could be anywhere here. Just keep a lookout while we're on our way to the lions. And Dave and I have not forgotten our sunbird mission, because in this light the sunbirds are going to be quite spectacular. So if the lions are doing what lions do best, which is snooze, we might go look for some sunbirds as well. Katja said she's unfortunately missed a few weeks of the safaris. And does this mean that with this little bit of rain we've had, the drought is now over? By no means, unfortunately, Katja. So it's a little break, about 13 mils, which is not that much, but we'll only know as we move deeper into the wet season. Even traditionally, this is quite early, so we will see what happens. But I think only time will tell whether the drought is truly over. So there are the very same vultures we saw from a distance at Buffels Hook. Let's see if we can get a bit closer to them. Playing the patience game. There we go. A group of white-backed vultures. You just see that little white speck through between the feathers there, and when they open their wings you can actually see it far more clearly. Okay, vultures, let's go see if there's anything left for you to eat, or if the lion's been greedy guts. Okay. Oh, looks like they've dragged the kill off the road. There's the buffalo carcass. And there is not much left. I don't see any lions. Do you see any lions, Dave? I'm sure they're around here, not too far, especially with those vultures sitting in the tree. Means they haven't left. There's not much shade around here. So there's the carcass. You can see all the blowflies. Actually, there we go. You can see they're actually quite pretty. The metallic greens and blues with the red heads. And they're normally the most common fly species on a carcass. Okay. Line, 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 line. Where are you lying, lions? So, if you have a look carefully on the ground, sorry Dave, there's some feathers on the ground, so the vultures have descended down before. I'm just going to have a closer look at the carcass, see if there's any meat left at all. Now, we went past the water hole just in case this was the case. They might not be there, but there's actually almost nothing left on this carcass. I have to keep the lions here, so it looks like they've moved. So we're going to have to start searching around here quite carefully. Let me look for my varkijkers. It might be down in the little river system where there's a bit of shade. But while we try find the incredible Nkuhumas, Jamie's got a feathered friend for you.
So while Brent goes off in search of those missing Nkuhumas, we have come across a nice one for all you birders out there. And for our new viewers, just a quick message. What we always encourage our viewers to do is actually keep a bird list. And you can make the rules up yourself if you want to only put birds on the list that you've seen, or if you've heard their call, or that you can recognize. It's up to you. And some of our viewers have bird lists over easily 200. So here's, for our new viewers, the first one to add to your list, or perhaps the second after the Lilac Breasted Roller, an amazing view of a red-crested korhaan. And what's awesome about these particular birds is that they should be going into their breeding season relatively soon, which means we might even get a chance to see their spectacular mating displays, where the male flies up into the air and then closes his wings and comes tumbling out of the sky. Now, believe it or not, hidden beneath his rather bluish head is the red crest, where the name comes from. Now, I'm not sure if any of our viewers have actually seen the red crest displayed. I know I haven't got it on camera before. It's actually quite rare to see because they're relatively shy birds. Although this one is playing ball very, very nicely. Aren't they beautiful? Can clearly see which parts of them are designed for camouflage versus display. Obviously, if this bird feels threatened and it's trying to hide, it's going to tuck that black that is under its legs and under its belly. It's going to tuck its legs underneath and hide that black and become almost indistinguishable from the ground unless it moves. So it hides all of the colorful parts of its body. Relative of the Nkuhuma Bustard, which we could get here. I haven't seen one yet, but a Nkuhuma Bustard is the heaviest flying bird in the world. Oh, look at him turning his head to the side to get a better angle on whatever it is it's looking for in terms of food. Glancing with one eye and then the next. Such peculiar looking birds with those long necks and very strange long legs. I love the head bob. He's just too cool. Wow, this is one of the longest red-crested korhaan sightings I've ever had. Isn't he amazing? Well done, Eggsy. I have no idea where it is. Oh, there it is. I didn't know where it was in real life for a second there. I'm stalking through. This is one of the longest korhaan sightings I've had, and it gives us a really nice opportunity to examine the whole body of the bird, from those long, weirdly jointed legs to the long neck and that powerful beak that he's using, probably to collect things like termites. At this time of day, you might find some in some elephant dung or something similar to what our hornbills do. Oh good, we've gone from a blue tractor to 2 large construction trucks. I am so happy. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to move off the road. Okay, let's squeeze off. Let's hope our bird doesn't go anywhere, because I have a really nice question from James Richard, and it's a good question that he's asked. And I'm going to show you guys the answer in my book, and we'll do a literal reading of the bird call since we can. But let's just have a closer look at him. So James Richards wants to know what are the core... Oh my goodness. Rusty's rolling now into the trucks. That's fantastic. Thank you, Rusty. Rusty's my vehicle, by the way. Hello. Bye-bye. Window fitters. Right, anyway, moving on. So James Richards' question is a very good one, and I actually got my book out in preparation to talk about this to start with. Now, he wants to know what the distinguishing features are between a korhaan and a bustard. Now, the korhaans are, of course, basically part of the bustard family. They're just relatively small. So they're slightly smaller, which is where the black or the southern black korhaan, which we get in Cape Town, the northern black korhaan, which is more towards the sort of the Kalahari area, and then our red-crested korhaan are all quite small birds. But it's a very, very narrow distinction. So James Richard, there isn't really one, because there's also something called a buff-crested bustard, which is exactly the same size as our little ones here. So it's a distinction that, there isn't really a major distinction, but the korhaans are smaller. There are no big korhaans. There are only big bustards, I think. Let me just double check that now that I've said that. No, that's right. That is true. So we'll have a look at we'll do a comparison. Just have a look at our red-crested korhaan. This is for all you budding birders out there. There's one other species of bustard that you might get confused with our red-crested korhaan, and that is the Black Bellied Bustard. And one of the distinctions is, obviously as the name suggests, it has a black belly, but look here, so does this bird. The black belly actually extends in the black-bellied male black-bellied bustard all the way up to underneath the neck. You also don't have such a clear blue cap on the males. So if you look, it's almost like he's got a greyish-blue helmet on. That's where he's hiding his red crest. And that's another one of the distinguishing factors. And for you especially, that's important because I can't give you a sense of scale. When we're looking at them on camera, it's almost impossible for you to tell if we're looking at a black-bellied bustard or a red-crested korhaan by the size alone. So you have to memorize the distinctive features. So our red-crested korhaan's got that beautiful white and black patch on the front of its chest. And it's got more in the way of white on the back as well. I'll show you in a moment in my book, but I'm reluctant for us to tear our eyes away from this particular bird anytime soon, because I think this is one of the best sightings we've had of one. And it just looks so spectacular in this afternoon light. We've also got a very loud whistling call. Head bobbing. Hello. Yes, we're still here. Thank you for not flying away. If you would be so kind as to give us your display next, that would be wonderful. Unfortunately, I think we need another male red-crested korhaan, or perhaps a lady, for him to impress before he's going to show us his red crest. They seem to be quite shy about it. I've only ever seen it twice, actually, come to think of it, in my entire life. And I'm interested to hear from all of you, our regular viewers who've been watching for longer periods of time, if you've ever had a chance to see a red-crested korhaan's crest on camera. I haven't. And I'm wondering whether some of the other guides might not have been able to show you it. Hey, it's the most patient korhaan in the entire world. So its cousin, the Kori bustard, can be up to 17 kilograms in weight, which is absolutely massive, which makes it the heaviest flying bird, not highest flying bird. It doesn't fly very high, but it does fly, which is very impressive considering its weight. And spends a lot of time on the ground, and I've been fortunate enough to see them on quite a regular basis where I used to work. They've got a heavy thumping flight sound. But that, in comparison to our gentleman over here, and I know it's a gentleman, by the way, because the bustards are very, very clearly sexually dimorphic. In other words, there's a big difference between the male and the female. And the korhaan, the Kori bustard is absolutely massive. And by massive, I mean standing up to nearly 1.5 meters in height. Okay, let's just look at the korhaan. Now I'm starting to call it a bustard, which is not what I want to do. Let's have a look at our korhaan for a little bit longer, just so that I can chat to Brent quickly on the Game Drive channel. Brent. I know he was trying to call me. There's a mud wallow a little bit to the east along the fire break. They might have been around there. I wasn't with them right until the end of the drive. Copy. So Brent was just wondering if I could give him an update on the lion's movements. Right, now that our bustard, no, korhaan, oh for goodness sake, I'm sorry, our korhaan has disappeared, let me show you a little bit about distinguishing between the bustards and the korhaans, and in particular our two species. And let me roll back onto the road because I'm at such an awkward angle that I feel as though Rusty's about to take us careering back into Buffelshoek, which I fear might be frowned upon. There we go. He keeps sort of edging backwards. So first of all, just quickly, this is our Kori bustard here. This is the massive bird that I was talking about. So well over close to 4 feet, up to about 130 odd centimeters, and as I said, about 17 kilograms. Stay book. Now that's the bustard family. Now, if we turn and we just have a look at our two species, it's a bit more difficult when it comes to the females, but have a look at this. This is our red-crested korhaan. There's his red crest. A lovely red crest that they display, but you hardly ever get to see. The females also have the nice black belly, but they don't have quite as prominent a skull cap on the top of their heads as the males do. So in the females you can barely see any of that bluish grey colour that I was talking about. In the males you can actually, and you can see a little bit of the blue extending up the neck. So that's your male. That is a red-crested korhaan. If we go here, if we go a little bit towards the Black Bellied Bustard, you can see the male's black goes all the way up underneath the chin, as I mentioned earlier. And the female doesn't have quite the amount of white on her back, if you're trying to tell the difference. And she has no black belly. So those are the two, the korhaan and the bustard, that you could maybe get confused. Right, I promised a literal reading of their calls, because it's the most hilarious thing. It's basically bird calls as written by ornithologists, and some of them are hilarious. So there we go. The song is protracted. This is the red-crested korhaan, with a series of clicks, tick, 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 switching to extended series of loud piping whistles. Pee, 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 pippity, pippity. And just for fun, let's go to our black-bellied bustard. Sorry, I'm laughing at the pippity, pippity. A short, sharp chick, followed by a pop. Right, so the black-bellied bustard has actually got one of the best calls ever. It's that whistle followed by a sound like a champagne cork popping. Brian does it amazingly. We're going to have to start working on Eggsy's imitating skills. Eggsy's just going like this. No, okay, fine, fair enough. Brian's got so good at it that he has attracted the call. So there you go, James Dungan. It's the black-bellied bustard. The red-crested korhaan, if I had to describe it, and I don't think I would have described it as a pippity, pippity, pip, 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 or whatever it was, I would probably describe it as a series of ascending whistles. But that wasn't very good, but it's something similar. And then the black-bellied bustard is the one that does the and then a pop sound, but I can't do it properly. Pop! Brian does it with his cheek. No, I can't do it. Never been able to do that. And there we go, a nice bird sighting to start off our afternoon. I'm going to get the red-crested korhaan's display on camera at some point. So just be ready. Be ready with your screenshots, because it happens very fast. Okay, well, of course, it would seem as though Brent has had some success with those lions. Let's go and see which one he's found.
Well, not that much success. And we've got one male here. Now the tracks of the rest of the pride keep heading east, so they've definitely abandoned that carcass. And there's nothing left for the vultures to pick on either. And he is looking quite fat and happy. Oh, I don't think the others are going to be too far away. So if one of the Birmingham boys obviously not being successful in entertaining the young Nkuhuma, it seems like the boy with the hole in his face is doing that. You can see those massive canines. Hi, Zaki. Now, Zaki's in Kenya, and Zaki's asking whether it's true if you can tell the age of a male lion by the color of his mane. Now, Zaki, not necessarily. You can actually tell, one of the things you can tell from the mane is the amount of testosterone produced. As they get older, they tend to produce more testosterone, leading in a darker mane. But it is not necessarily a good age factor. There's quite a lot of different ways to age a male lion. One is their nose. I'm going to look at their nose. But also, again, it is not a hard and fast rule. So once their nose stops being pink and turns black, they're supposed to be old. Although I have seen 9, 10-year-old male lions with still relatively pinkish noses. So it all depends. These guys are about 6 now, almost 6. So in their prime. Now, as they get older, generally the manes get darker, but you do have individuals that have lighter colored manes. So, and he is a magnificent looking specimen. Male lions are often full of cuts, scratches, holes, bite marks, limps, and other injuries. It's tough at the top when you're a male lion, and a lot of those injuries are actually caused by infighting amongst his coalition members. So he's part of a coalition of 4 adult male lions that we know hold domain over 3 different prides at the moment. The Nkuhuma Pride, the Styx Pride, and the Torchwood Pride. Hello, big boy. Now, it doesn't look like he's going to go anywhere soon. So what do you guys think? Do we look for the rest of the Nkuhuma Pride? Do we go see if we can find those cubs? Let me know. Hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV. Should we leave this Birmingham Boy and try find the rest of the Pride? So it's up to you guys to make the decision. And remember, questions at WildEarthTV or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Should we look for the rest of the Pride or should we stay with this Birmingham Boy? So while we wait to hear what your decision is, Jamie has got a striped donkey.
A magnificent striped donkey, also known as a horse in pajamas, or whatever other euphemism we can think of for the plain zebra or the Burchell zebra. Isn't he magnificent? And he's following this big stallion, is following behind the rest of his herd, making sure to protect them from the rear and giving us a beautiful view. And I'm sorry to drag you away from our stallion, but we've got a really, really nice sighting on the right of us with the rest of the herd. Some termite mound ascending zebra. Now, we saw this a couple of days ago on Cheetah Plains, and these zebra are behaving no differently. As you know, termite mounds obviously bring up a great deal of nutrients from deep below the surface of the soil. So often the plant life there grows quite well, and often the grasses are of a particularly good quality, or perhaps a species that the zebra like. And so, as a result, that's why I think we've been seeing so many zebras up termite mounds. This is a particularly large one, and I'm quite hoping that this individual is going to ascend, ooh, careful, all the way up to the top. Look at her go. It's quite impressive, really, when you think about it, especially because it looks as though this termite mound's still a little bit waterlogged, so it's sinking underneath the zebra's foot. Yes, right up to the top. Feeding off the feather-top chloris grass that I've noticed grows a lot around the top of these termite mounds. And those of you cast your mind back to rainy summer months when we went and sat at the hyena den and we had that beautiful grass growing there, that's what the zebra are eating now. I nearly called them giraffe. which isn't very good. I promise I do know the difference between a zebra and giraffe. I'm relatively certain I do. Look at you go, girl. All the way up to the top. Most impressive. And zebra tend not to be the most agile of creatures, but they are very, very fast. In the same way horses are. And they are very round-bellied, just like their horses, in that they have a digestive system that produces a considerable amount of gas, essentially, from the bacteria breaking down the plant material that they eat. I know that that is something, for those of you that were watching our Mara specials, it's something that James was discussing, and their specialized cecums, their intestines. I thought it was a lady. It's a man. I mean, it's a boy. Not a man, it's a boy. It's a male zebra, which surprised me. I actually thought this was a breeding herd, but it's obviously a group of young stallions, so a bachelor herd. Now, bachelor zebra herds are always, well, all zebra herds are fascinating to watch, but bachelor zebra herds can actually be exceptionally entertaining just because the young males often spar with each other as a way of essentially preparing for them for the time when they are big enough and strong enough to fight for dominance over a herd or to fight to acquire the females that will later become part of their harem. Watching them establish a hierarchy, and there usually is a sort of a basic hierarchy, a loose hierarchy, with the oldest and the largest zebra stallions being top dogs, or top zebra, so to speak. And obviously, a male zebra is kicked out of his herd when he reaches sexual maturity by his father, because his father essentially doesn't want any competition or the threat of another male mating with a female on the sly. So he kicks his sons out, but being herding animals by instinct and by nature, they form these little bachelor herds. And I'm seriously impressed with the zebra's skills. Look at that awkward position that it's in. Most impressive. We saw a zebra up at the top here earlier whilst you were with Brent and that lion. And I'm hoping we get to see, it's not going to do the descent in the same way. Our zebra from earlier kind of half cantered down front first. This zebra's not quite there just yet. Well, that was pretty controlled. Kimberline, speaking of our zebra and their digestive processes and the realities thereof. Oh, bye-bye. It was such a perfect view for the conversation we were about to have. So Kimberline was thinking perhaps the digestive gases might also be a useful defense mechanism for a zebra being chased by something like a lion. Perhaps a burst, I assume where you're going with that, is a burst of gas might deter or surprise the chasing lion. Unfortunately, I don't think that works in the zebra's favor. As we've seen with lions, they aren't particularly deterred by the smells that perhaps you or I might find offensive. And whilst the noise might come as a little bit of a surprise the first time it happened to the lion, I think they would very rapidly learn that it just means that the zebra's frightened and running away and it doesn't hurt them in any way, shape or form. I like it though, it's an interesting point. Racing zebra, perhaps releasing their gas in order to terrify their predators. What do you think, mister? I have to tell you that zebra, when they are trotting away from something, if they've all decided to go running off, I've also seen a zebra, speaking of them using it as a defense mechanism, I've seen a zebra frighten itself and then continue to frighten itself with the velocity with which the gases were escaping it. And it continued to run, and the more it ran, the more it released, and the more it released, the more it ran. And it was, I have to tell you, thoroughly entertaining. A zebra being scared by its own digestive gases. It doesn't matter how old you are, that's always going to be funny. If you see it, I promise you, it's always going to be funny. Look at him with his ears back. He's thoroughly unimpressed by my story. Not befitting of his dignity. They are magnificently photogenic animals, despite all of that. This is a big stallion. You can see it, he's really solid and well built. He's got quite a thick neck. And I know it's impossible for you to get a good sense of scale, but this is pretty much as big as a plain zebra stallion will get. He's very, very solid. If you take a moment to compare, if you cast your mind back to the stallion that was on the top of the termite mound, just have a look at how different the individual stripes are. The zebra on the termite mound had very, very clear shadow stripes. So the stripes that run between the darker stripes. You won't see it so much here, although each and every stripe pattern is unique to a zebra. But if you look along the backside, those stripes in between the dark stripes are almost completely faded, whereas on the other zebra they were relatively prominent. And it just goes to show how unique each and every single zebra looks if you take the time to actually look at them properly. He's almost got a dewlap developing. Jennifer's right, this is really truly a stunning zebra stallion. He is absolutely in his prime. In fact, I think he's ready to go out and conquer. He really looks it. He doesn't look young at all. He doesn't look old, but he looks to be in his prime. I'm surprised that he hasn't set out to conquer a female from a different herd. Well, actually conquer the male from a different herd. Because that is, of course, how zebra acquire their females, fighting with other males. And there you go, Zaki in Kenya wants to know about how old I would estimate the zebra to be. It's really difficult to say exactly. I mean, he's obviously past the age of sexual maturity, so he's older than 2, being in a bachelor herd like this. If I had to guess, I'd put him at maybe 4 or so, which is when they do reach their prime, 4 or 5. Sometimes they have to be a little bit older before they're ready to compete with other stallions. That's a guess. I think you could probably apply the principles of aging horses in terms of their growth period. And obviously they go through that colt and then stallion phase. But they've got a good couple of years as a colt before they're fully classified as a fully grown stallion. Perhaps the principles apply to the zebra. The only way to really accurately age an animal is to get him to show you his teeth. And I have to be honest, that's not something you want a zebra to do. I promise. I promise it really isn't. It's one of the most uncomfortable sensations in the world, especially when they sneak up behind you and bite you on the shoulder. Which is not what wild zebra do, obviously. Although I did have one interesting experience when a zebra chased my dog, and my dog ran to me, and then the zebra was chasing me. They can be surprisingly scary when they want to be, and they've got very solid incisors. They're also more than capable of kicking very powerfully, just like a horse. And it's one of the reasons why they have never been domesticated. They just don't domesticate. They're recalcitrant, obtuse. Look, he's giving us a show of his teeth. Come on, do one more time. And generally just thoroughly badly tempered. Bad-tempered. There you go, see? I think he's deeply insulted. So perfectly timed. So there you go, Patrick. You wanted to know if zebra is basically a horse. There's a couple of major differences, but they do fall under the Equus family, the Equidae family. So they are in the same family as horses, which is relatively clear from their structure. But one, as I said, people have tried to domesticate them, and they just don't do it very well. They also don't have the same back strength. They're not structured in that way, so they actually can't support great weight on their back or any kind of weight on their back. You can't ride them. Their hoof to size ratio is quite a bit smaller, so their hooves are actually quite a lot tinier than a horse. That hoof would be roughly not quite half the size of a horse that size or a pony that size, but close, just over half the size. And I think they get deeply offended if you call them horses. Hey? And then, of course, there's the tail, there's the mane, there's a couple of very important differences. Now, the reason he was curling his lip, by the way, and why he's battering at his eye like that with his front foot is actually because of the flies. So that's why he was pulling such funny facial expressions at us. However, there could have been a threat display to other male zebras. I don't think so, though. And it was something that he would practice, as we said, sparring to get females. Sean, you wanted to know when the breeding season for zebra is. They don't really have one. But there is a peak of births towards our rainy season. So more baby zebra are born in summer than there are in winter, and that's just because there's more food available. And it's just easier for the mothers to sustain pregnancy, and their estrous cycles are skewed towards that sort of period of time. So a zebra's gestation is just like a human's, it's 9 months. But we see baby foals being born at any time of the year. Oh, I say that like it's a regular occurrence. We see foals at any time of the year. We've only, as far as I know, ever captured one zebra birth on camera. But it's something to look forward to in the future. You never know when that's going to happen again. And that's the nice thing about zebra and Inala and some of the other animals without a specific breeding season. Look at those legs. You can see how powerful they truly are. Now, they say that a zebra foal imprints on its mother's shoulder stripe pattern. Ginny wants to know if I could estimate roughly how tall this zebra is at the shoulder in hands or just in general. Ginny, I could actually do better than that, probably. I could probably go and stand where he is, but it depends on whether or not he wants to move, and he doesn't seem to want to move right now. So hands, I'm not so good with hands anymore. If I had to, I would say about 14. What's the dividing line between a pony and a horse? I would say he's pony rather than horse. So what's that, 14.2 or somewhere around there, hands? 14.3. So I would say he would be around there, 14.2, 14.3 hands. In meters, which is slightly easier to work with, or in feet, for those of you in America, if I went and stood up against him, I'm 5'7". He would probably come up to my chest, which would put him at about, I would say, 1.5 meters in terms of height. Maybe, 1.5 meters at his shoulder. He's a big boy. I mean, he must weigh a good couple of 100 kilograms. Shame, the flies are bugging him. You need to go find a buddy, man, so that he can swish your tail at your face. So what I mean by that is zebra often stand bottom to face, so back to front, if you know what I mean. I don't think I described that very well. But basically with one facing one direction and one facing the other, right next to each other. And they do that so that, well, first of all, they can watch each other's backs, and second of all, the swishing tail will also help to keep flies away from their face, as well as the rest of the other zebra's body. Daniel in Scotland, a really good reminder to address this point because I often forget to. Daniel, you wanted to know why zebra have stripes. And the truth is, there's a lot of debate about that from different ecologists. So the dominant argument for many, many years has been, well, it's camouflage. And it's basically a form of disruptive coloring, breaking up the animal's outline, especially when you see them together in herds, because then it becomes difficult to distinguish one from the other. And there's certainly a bit of truth to that, although to me, predators have never really, once they've seen a zebra herd, they're going to chase it and they're going to single out an individual that splits away. That just is how it is. But that's one of the arguments. Also, there's an argument that it helps to hide them. And when you think that predators, especially or at night, which is when most of the big predators hunt, they basically see in black and white. During the day, they'll see in a little bit of color, but at night, they'll basically see in black and white. You can sort of see how it would help to hide them. So don't imagine looking at them through our eyes. Then the other argument is that there is an argument that it's thermoregulation. So the black stripes heat up faster than the white stripes, creating micro air currents and basically cooling down the zebra's skin by wind passing along its back, which I have to be honest, I think is nonsense. But I haven't spent many, many decades getting my PhD in evolutionary biology. So, fair enough. And then the other argument is insects. So it's meant to interfere with the landing eyesight of insects. So in areas where there are things like tsetse flies, for example, it's found that zebra have a significantly lower level of tsetse flies than others. So it's like they struggle to land because their vision can't adjust to the stripes. It disrupts their ability it disrupts their proprioception. You can make of that what you will. The question I have to ask is, why has, of all of the different, although I suppose it's not quite the case, why is the zebra the only animal with this kind of approach? Why is it the only black and white diurnal animal with stripes? Yes, there's black and white animals like honey badgers, but they're nocturnal animals, and that's a different thing. Nyala have stripes, but it's a different color. What is it about the black and white coloring? I don't know. There's no answer to that question. I'm just asking. I just think it's an interesting one. It's an interesting point. And off he goes. Now, the one thing it doesn't do in terms of stripes is stop ticks from settling on it. That's an answer to Wicked Angie's question about whether or not zebras have ticks. They do have ticks, and they also sometimes have oxpeckers. When we started in the sighting, he did actually have an oxpecker on him, but he got a little bit grumpy with it and chased it off while we were watching the zebra on the termite mound. So Wicked Ann, yes, zebra do get ticks, and they will let oxpeckers sit on them. And in fact, if we look closely, I say that now that he's moved off behind a branch. Let's try and reposition so we can see underneath his armpit, because that's one of the big places where you might see it. He's going to be obtuse now. See, I told you they were obtuse. Although he's been very obliging right up until recently, right up until now. Let's have a look and see if we can't spot any ticks, although I'm sure that wasn't necessarily what you wanted to see. It also gives us a nice view, since he's presented us so beautifully with his backside, just to have a look at the thin black stripes. In fact, he's barely got a thin black stripe between the cheeks of his bottom. Now, that is what tells us it's a male. The females have a thicker black stripe. Let's have a look under his armpit there, see if there's any ticks. They're quite good at scratching them. Yes, he's got some there. In the folds of his skin, under his front legs, or between his front legs, you might see the odd bulbous tick sticking out. This is the only species of zebra that we get in this area. There are others. Mountain zebra, which is one of the endangered species of zebra, far more endangered than our plain zebra, and definitely a species I'd be interested in spending a bit more time with. Very, very similar, just a slight dewlap on the Cape Mountain zebra, whereas our Birchall's or our plain zebra doesn't have it. And then there's no shadow stripes like we were talking about earlier. And each and every individual zebra is a bit different. In this case, his stripes don't go all the way down to his feet, at least on his front legs. He almost looked like, don't you think his leg stripes look like the printer ran out of ink? Like it couldn't complete the task. It was a vague effort towards the end. Or someone ran out of paint. Been such a tolerant zebra. He's given us an amazing sighting. Monique in London loves our zebra's ears, and he does have wonderful ears, doesn't he? The patterns on the back are spectacular. And Monique, your observation about his ears actually sort of ties into your question, which is, have you ever noticed, or have I ever noticed in herding animals, that one particular individual perhaps takes on the role of sentry more frequently, or takes responsibility for the alarm calls and so on? It depends on the species of animal that you're talking about. So in a zebra herd, for example, As I'm sure you know, the females walk ahead and the male actually takes up a position at the back of the group to make sure nothing's sneaking up on them, whilst the female will walk into the wind to make sure that she can smell whatever's in front of her. I mean, that's a very general description, and obviously things change, but if you watch them walk, that's how they walk. In Impala, there's no sentries. They're all the sentries. They're all the sentries, and they're all responsible for the alarm calls, and whichever animal happens to spot the threat first is the one that starts. And often if you watch them, they start alarm calling without knowing what they're looking at. They immediately start looking round to look and see where the alarm calling animal is looking so that they can look and alarm call as well. But they start off just for good measure. Especially if there's a leopard walking past, you'll see one of them frantically looking from side to side going, bah, bah, I don't know why I'm doing this, but bah. And that herding instinct is very, very strong. Most of the herd animals, though, don't necessarily have strict and defined roles. Or at least as far as we know. But they might, we don't exactly spend hours and hours with these animals on a daily basis. Perhaps if we did, we might learn a little bit more about which individuals take which roles. Buffalo, for example, there's a whole load of research into the fact that they seem to decide which direction to travel in by democracy. When they're all resting, the females will get up and all look in one, or the majority will look in one direction, and that's the direction that the herd goes. I don't know how that's decided, but it is. But it's not quite like something like mongoose, where often the alpha male will take up that sentry role. Oh look, there's another one coming round the right of the termite mound. These zebra have been very, very obliging. This is really close to where we saw the herd with the pregnant female that I mentioned, or that we saw. Oh, bye-bye. It's because I drew attention to you, wasn't it? I'm about to walk off the road. Remember, if we cast our minds back a couple of weeks, we saw a pregnant female zebra that looked as though if somebody poked her very gently, she'd pop. She was so pregnant. It made me wonder whether or not these zebra might be part or following along behind that herd. But I haven't seen any sign of her, and I haven't seen a brand new foal. This one's printer also ran out of ink. Alrighty, well, I think we should move on from our zebra now. Although they're still quite nicely visible. Let's try and reposition so we've got a little bit of a better view of the one on the termite mound. Don't really want to scare them off since they have been so obliging. He's still there. Whoops! Panic! It's okay, boy. No, that's another zebra that's behind the termite mound. Don't panic. It's okay. He just startled at another vehicle driving down the road behind us, giving us a really nice example of just how fast they can cover ground. I mean, that was not a run, that was a trot. Nothing happened, don't mind me, all is fine. Pretend you didn't see that. Beautiful. Monique, I see exactly what you mean about the back of their ears. It's like a Rorschach painting, Rorschach print. Robin, we spoke about the males and the fact that they had a bachelor herd earlier. You wanted to know, do the females stay with their herds or do they leave? And there's a combination of things that can happen. One is that a male fights another male, and that the male that's dominant over the herd loses, so he has to give up one of his females, or the winning stallion will take one of his females and will often take one of his daughters, so one of the fillies. Or often he'll abandon his least favorite mare, because they do have favorites. They kind of have a hierarchy of favorites. And then also fillies disperse on their own. Now, because they have such a strict hierarchy, initially the foal, when she's born, she'll take on the hierarchy of her mother, so her mother will keep her safe. But once she does reach sexual maturity, then she kind of gets boosted down the ranks a little bit and sent to the bottom of the pile, so to speak. And she'll often disperse on her own. But most of the time it's because she's been won by another male. So they don't stay with their herds for the rest of their life, which makes total sense, because obviously as soon as they reach sexual maturity, nature does its best to avoid inbreeding. So by her staying in the herd, there's a possibility of her father then breeding or mating with her, which is something that nature does its best to avoid. Hello? Sorry to interrupt you. I'm having the James Henry effect on all the zebra, all the animals. So I was wrong about it being a purely stallion group. There's also females here as well. This is a female. So perhaps it is his herd. Maybe it was just a young male I was looking at earlier. Sorry guys, Herbie's just trying to get hold of me. Standing by, Herbert. Sorry Herbert, please go again. Negative. With some mango now. Copy. Thanks very much, Herbie. I'll make my way there. Herbert's just telling me that he has found some elephants. How wonderful. Copy, thanks Herbert. He's just letting me know that the leopard tracks from earlier had been solidly driven over by quite a few vehicles, so they might be slightly older than we thought. James Bear was wondering if there's been a reclassification of zebras into new families recently, and I don't know. James, I'm not 100% sure. If there has been, then that's something that I've missed or it's passed me by. I know that the Burchells, I grew up knowing the plain zebra as the Burchell zebra, and they have been renamed. I'm not quite sure what prompted that particular renaming. Perhaps it was they were just looking for more consistency throughout the African continent, so trying to sort of create, in similar ways that they've done with the bird species that they've renamed, perhaps just try and make it consistent throughout the different countries as to what we call the animals. I don't know anything more than that apart from the renaming of the Burchell zebra, and I still call them Burchell zebra. And I struggle with trying to remember. But James, if there is something that I've missed, I would really, really like to hear about it. If you find any information of it, or if there's anything specifically that you were thinking of, I'd be very interested to hear. It would also be very interesting to, I don't know, do a little bit of similar to what they did with the giraffe in terms of DNA testing to find out just how related the zebra species are to each other. Because, of course, recent research has determined that the extinct quagga, spelt Quagga, I think. I don't think it has a U in it. The extinct quagga, which people always thought was a strange species of zebra or a zebra mixed with a horse, because it had stripy front forequarters and a brown back quarter, has only recently been discovered through DNA testing to have been a subspecies of the plain zebra that we're looking at now. There was just some kind of geographical isolation. Perhaps that's something that you might be referring to, James. There was, up until very recently, it was just thought they were a different species that human beings had made extinct, which we did. We killed off the last quagga. But it was just a population that got isolated in some way. Obviously, some of the individuals, like we saw with the zebra that didn't have stripes all the way down the legs, sometimes you do see zebra with not many stripes on their back ends, and that obviously bred through in the population and changed the way they look. There's a breeding project in the Western Cape that's trying to recreate the quagga, which I find fascinating. They've managed to get rid of the stripes. Now they're just trying to get or at least on the back, now they're just trying to get the brownish look to it. I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's now artificially created. Is it really recreating the quagga? Maybe. This zebra sighting's been incredible. Oh, many questions have been asked about the zebra, and not all of them have answered. Have answers. I'm going to head across to that elephant herd that Herbert called me into. Let's go back to Brent and see if he's had any success with his lion search.
Well, there's a paw. Is it a male? Is it a female? Oh, it's a female, and there's one of the little Nkuhuma cubs. Yes, our tracking was successful. From the last tracks, from where we saw that male, they're probably about 200-300 meters. Now, there's the other male and the youngest lioness in the bush behind us, but I thought we would start with the wonderful little cubs. Now, there's only one cub visible. The rest are in the bush down there towards the drainage line, all having a snooze, but 3 adult females are here, and from what I can see, at least 2 of them are the lactating females. Well, one's definitely. So, yay, success. There we go. You can see they're still breathing quite heavily, still full of buffalo meat. The wind's picked up now, but if it dies down, we'll try again just now. You can actually hear them breathing, a very heavy as they digest that buffalo. Of course, the lactating females are going to digest much quicker as they are producing milk for those wonderful little Nkuhuma cubs. So they will need more food more regularly than they would if the cubs were a little bit older. So at about 6 months, the cubs will be weaned. So there's still a few months left of suckling. Now it's difficult to see whether he's sleeping or drinking, but he is drinking, but quite contentedly with the eyes closed, and probably quite enjoying the fact that none of the cousins or siblings are there to compete. There we go. Our lions doing what they do best. Now they might head down towards the Buffalo's Hook water hole for a drink a little bit later. Let's just move forward a little bit, see if we can see the rest of the cubs down in the drainage system. Success at the Nkuhumas, and let's be honest, was there ever any doubt? Just going to see if we can see where the other cubs are. Yeah, I'm live. I'll chat to you about it in 2 seconds. Sorry, just saying hello to one of our neighbours from Buffelshoek. Hello, lions. It looks like it's not one of the lactating females. It's the amber-eyed lioness on the right. Let's just go see. So that probably means that the other lactating females with the rest of the cubs. And oh, is that little one going to lead us? Or is it going to go irritate Auntie Amber? No, you're not going to get much luck there, little one. You might get a smack. Yes, no. Auntie Amber's got no milk. Yes, you might find a bit more success there. There we go. So, I think that from what I could hear earlier, I think the rest of the cubs are not far away. Just down here somewhere. So we're going to have a quick look. And then also there's that mating pair not far away as well. So I think we're going to have to put a bit of a handbrake on our sunbird search while we search for Nkuhuma cubs. They could be anywhere around here. Let's have a look. Now they could have also gone with the other lioness down towards the water, but it doesn't look like it. No tracks here. Okay, doesn't look like they're down here. Let's double check. Have a look in the little gullies behind us. Unfortunately not. I'm sure they're not far off. It's unlikely that 7 cubs and the 1 lioness would be more than about 50 meters away from the rest of them. I think if we spend our afternoon around here, the chances are the other cubs will make an appearance, but there are quite a few vehicles who need to come here to have a look, so we'll stay for a little bit longer, then maybe head off towards the mating pair and then give other people a chance. I think they might be just down there, Dave. Down in there, and there's a nice bit of shade back there, so that's where I think the rest of the pride is. There we go. Maybe she's gonna, one of the lionesses is up. Maybe she will lead us to the cubs, or I think she probably might just go flop down next to Amber. Or she's going to urinate on Amber's foot. And Amber hasn't even opened her eyes, even though she is being urinated upon. There we go, now she's moved her foot. Oof, oof. There you go. You can just see that little cub popping its head. Now, Shamsung is wondering, will amber-eyed lioness become less tolerant if she becomes pregnant? I'd probably say more tolerant. Those sort of maternal instincts will come through. Although they're not too bad. I mean, she does snarl, but no more or no less than the mothers and other animals, or the other animals in the pride snarl at the cubs when they get a bit irritating. And the little one just popping his head over. Copy, no problem. Okay. Now we're going to sit here. I'm going to hope that the rest of the cubs come out of the drainage line at some point, but Jamie has got a lanky beast to show you.
A long and lanky beast indeed, and unless I'm very much mistaken, this is not a zebra, it is a giraffe. I'm pretty sure. If I think back to my guiding lessons, I'm pretty sure this is a giraffe. I'm joking. It's a big male giraffe, and interestingly enough, it is feeding off a tamboti tree, which our regular viewers will know is something that is incredibly toxic to human beings. Just a teaspoon of the latex from a tamboti tree can kill a full-grown man. If you burn and cook on the wood, the smoke will make you nauseous, and possibly for younger and sort of more fragile members of the human population can actually be fatal just on its own, just a smoke inhalation. Cooking meat on it will give serious digestive complaints, but for a giraffe, it is absolutely no problem. He's more than happy to tuck into a little bit of fresh green tamboti. And while he goes about his lunch, he's also got a cohort of birds sitting on his back that are going about gathering theirs. Although, just as I said that, he swished and they all moved about. There we go, well done, Eggsy. A red-billed oxpecker, talking about ticks on zebra and the fact that they let oxpeckers sit on them. Look at how cool this is. We've got such an amazing view of how it combs through the fur, looking for ticks. Is it going to go for that weak patch? Nope, it's not going to go for that little patch of skin. Oh, bye. He's got a scar there. Absolutely fascinating to watch those birds at work and the way that they're able to cling onto the smooth fur of a giraffe. If we sit here nice and quietly, he might actually come more into the open. He's coming right towards us. Perfect, thank you, boy. Hiding his head to get to the tamboti leaves, but giving us a lovely view of that tongue, hard at work as it reaches in and wraps around the leaves. As I said that, he stopped and started using his lips. Oh, there we go, we've got a brief view of the tongue. That deeper purple colour. Oh, it happened so fast. Going about demolishing this tamboti tree's leaves. It's a perfect view of their long heads and their long snouts, adapted for reaching right into trees to get those leaves. Oh, look at this. Here you go. And purple tongue, that is famous for giraffe, in giraffe. Something that's always been a hit with all of our school drives when we take the school kids out on safari. I don't know, there's something about the fact that a giraffe has a purple tongue that they just find so intriguing. Little kids love that fact. I can sort of see why. It's so strange looking. Now, the reason that I know that this is a male giraffe and not a female giraffe, just before we go into Zaki's question, is because of the ossicones on the top of his head, but also his size, but I'll get to that in a moment to answer Zaki's question. But most importantly, it is the ossicones on the top of his head, rubbed bald, thick and powerful looking. Something that separates the males from the females and makes them very distinctive. But when you look at him straight away, you'll notice that he is very, very, very tall. So there's actually quite a large size difference between the males and the females in terms of height. Zaki, you wanted to know. Now, Zaki's watching in Kenya, where, of course, you get an entirely different species of giraffe, the Maasai giraffe. He wants to know what the average height of giraffe is, and males and females. So for males, you're looking at about 5 to 6 meters. For the females, you're looking at just under that, probably about 4.5, 4.6 meters in height. So there's about half a meter difference in the average size of, at least half a meter difference of average size between the males and the females. Now, I was trying to convert that into feet. So but that's for our viewers working in the imperial system rather than the metric. So for males, it's roughly, about 15 feet, just over 15 feet, between 15 and 18 feet in height, whereas the females, it is under that. My conversion brain is not working too well, about 13, 14 feet. There is quite a considerable difference in size between the males and females. The females are also more slender. Their necks are slightly more slender. They're not as bulky as the males, which is the general tendency out here. Of course, the big exception to that being the spotted hyena, but spotted hyenas are just an exception to all the rules. They've got such a fascinating structure in the fact that the females are larger than the males. But they are the only example of that in the mammal kingdom out here. It's the only case where you'll see that. Look at him reaching his head right into this tambuti tree. The other big difference with males and females, and it's a general rule, it's not a rule, actually. It's a general guideline. Males often feed with their necks right upwards, stretching right up, whereas females will often have their heads actually held slightly lower, so not at the full reach of their necks. And generally biologists think that that's kind of a way of reducing the competition between males and females. Sort of like, and I've made this comparison before and it's a bizarre one, but kind of like the beaks of woodpeckers, where the beaks of the males are much firmer and more solid, which means they target slightly different parts of the tree compared to the females. And giraffe kind of do that as well. But it is a weird comparison to compare a giraffe and a woodpecker. Oh, that was a particularly tough leaf, that one. I'm really hoping when he gets tired of these branches, he actually might move even more into the open, which I think he's about to do. Closing his eyes because that stick nearly poked him, and that's where the long eyelashes come in so useful. It's okay, boy. Oh, onto that one now. Thank you very much. Look at you. So as I said, long lashed eyes to protect them from spiky twigs. Look at that. You can see how his eyes are closing protectively to stop it being poked. Now, I'm hoping he's going to give us another view of that amazing tongue. Nat.Geo wanted to know how long a giraffe's tongue is. Close to, not quite, but close to 1/2 meter in length. Now, they're roughly 40 odd centimeters. Give or take. Again, it depends on the size of the individual, the males and the females, so that's a sort of an average length. But that is exceptionally long. Now, we don't get to see all of that tongue most of the time, but it does mean when they're stretching right up, and I've seen it a few times where a giraffe is desperate for a leaf that's just out of its reach, and all of a sudden you see this long purple tongue snaking upwards to try and grab the leaf. It's highly entertaining to watch. And we don't, generally when we sit and watch them feed like this, we don't get to see the full extent of the tongue. We only see a couple of inches of it poking out every now and again. And I'm afraid my inch conversion is not very good, but what's that? It's just under 20 inches, about 17 inches in length. He's having such a ball, as are these oxpeckers. Now we've got another clear view of them. Let's just have a look at what they're up to. I love watching. I don't think I ever get bored of watching the way that they comb through that fur. It's so meticulous. Look how fast that head movement is. It's almost a blur. Even gives us a chance to look at the structure of their toes, that powerful back toe. And they've actually got that outside toe in the front is actually movable so that they can reach almost backwards and grip onto the fur like that. Because it really is a precarious position that they find themselves in. And you can see the stiffened tail feathers at all, or not. Or you could have an argument and disappear. There you go. Back again. You see the stiffened tail feathers at work, also helping to prop the bird up. And for the most part, this is an exceptionally helpful process for most of the animals. It gets rid of all of those exoparasites, the ticks, and of course they can't get all of them, but one little bird can eat about 1,000 small ticks per day. And that's a huge amount. Oh, bye. Peekaboo. Yes, we're still here. Oh, we're moving again. I completely lost track of where I was going to go with that next sentence. I got so thoroughly entertained by the oxpeckers poking above the giraffe's mane. What was I saying? Oh, yes, I remember. Helpful birds right up until the point that the animal has some kind of an injury, at which point they become more of a hindrance than a help. So because they really like ticks, it stands to reason that they will also eat matted blood, dried blood, and mucus. And so an injury is a temptation that's impossible for them to resist, and they'll sit on an animal. Look at this. This is incredible. Look, he's going to scratch. He's going to scratch himself on the branch. When you don't have thumbs, a tree will just have to do. No, boy. You are such a gentleman. Look at you, you're beautiful. On to the buffalo thorn next. Impervious to those pricking thorns that to us are terribly uncomfortable and result in many, many hours trying to untangle yourself if you happen to walk into one. Oh, sorry, it's not a buffalo thorn, it's a young tamboti. Oh, so he's really on a tamboti mission. Speaking of thorns, because young tambotis actually have spines, but giraffe are capable of wrapping their tongue around the thorns. David in Napa! Yes, it is true that giraffes' tongues are impregnated with melanin to make them tougher. So melanin is a very, very tough pigment, and that's why their tongues are purple. It's because of the melanin, and it essentially means that their skin doesn't break as easily. So yes, 100% true. It's amazing to watch what they can do. I mean, he just wraps his tongue around and is now just stripping. Completely impervious to the roughness of the bark. I'd hate to think what we'd do to our mouths if we tried it. And there's the oxpecker back in the mane. Bye. Just because I drew attention to it. Sorry, Eggsy. I am looking for a juvenile oxpecker, sorry, while our giraffe strips away. I did see one earlier, and I'm hoping it might still be around. Can we just have a look at the oxpecker on his shoulder, the one on the top? Nope, that's also a red. That's an adult. I saw a juvenile earlier with its dark-coloured beak. But these are all fully grown red-billed oxpeckers. So busy at work. This is amazing. One of the best oxpecker sightings ever. They're beautiful birds. I love the contrast with the yellow and the red eye. Very cool. Okay, we have to go back to our oxpeckers because Sandy's asked a question I don't know the answer to. Sandy would like to know if they always comb in one direction. Oh no, don't move now, Giraffe. This is an important question. I need to know the answer to it. Sandy, I don't think so, but now you've flummoxed me because they seem to all be going from left to right. Oh, come back. There's some very important discoveries happening. Wait. Aw. Perhaps he's going to go and have a drink at Gallagher Pan. Ah, antenna. This is such a beautiful shot. For those of you listening to bird calls, there's a southern boo-boo calling. This is awesome. I love that casual stride. Look at how left and right sides move at the same time. Or at least both right and both left legs move at the same time. Very unusual out here. The only other animal is the camel. I'm scared he's not going to want to drink. Let's try. We won't go right up to him because he's very, very comfortable with the vehicle.